Hospitals are supposed to be sanctuaries, places where the sick enter with fear and leave with renewed breath. But every so often, behind the veil of sterile walls and white coats, someone discovers how easy it is to flip the switch between life and death. Someone discovers how invisible death can be when delivered by the person trusted to save you. Tonight, we tell the story of Dr. William Edmund Wigg, a man once celebrated as a compassionate healer, a man with steady hands, flawless diagnosis rates, and the gentle voice patients believed could pull them back from the brink. But court records would later paint a very different picture, one that earned him a chilling nickname, the Angel of Death. According to investigators, Dr. Wigg may have poisoned as many as 36 of his own patients. Not suddenly, not violently, but quietly, gradually, methodically, each death disguised as a natural tragedy, until the pattern finally revealed itself. This is his story. The story of Dr. William Wigg does not begin in a hospital. It begins in a farmhouse on the outskirts of Davenport, Iowa, where winter nights rattled the windows and summer mornings smelled of wheat. His father, Edmund Wigg, was a stern man, carved from the old world. He believed in discipline the way others believed in religion. His mother, Marjorie, was the opposite, soft-spoken, artistic, almost ethereal, a woman who believed every child was an unfinished symphony waiting for the right composer. William grew up between these two worlds, the rigid, structured world of his father and the imaginative, unbound world of his mother. Neighbors remembered him as an observant child, quiet to the point of eerie, not shy but watchful. He liked puzzles, riddles, disassembling clocks to see how their tiny gears commanded time. By age 7, he had memorized the names of every bone in the human body. By 9, he performed checkups on household pets, wrapping their paws in cotton and scribbling nonsense prescriptions. His mother encouraged his curiosity. His father believed his curiosity needed discipline. The result was a child who learned not only how things worked, but how people worked, how they breathed when nervous, how their eyes flinched when lying, how their voices shifted when afraid. It would be the gift or curse that shaped the rest of his life. William's brilliance became undeniable in high school. His academic scores soared. Teachers whispered about his future. He devoured every biology textbook he could find. But what stood out wasn't just intelligence. It was empathy. He stayed after school to help classmates understand lessons. He volunteered at local clinics. He sat beside elderly patients, listening to stories that would bore any other teenager. He once told a reporter decades later, "People open their souls when they're sick. It's the closest thing to truth we ever see in another human being." Medical school was inevitable. He entered the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine at age 19. Too young, some said. Too brilliant, others countered. His professors described him as gifted beyond measurement, obsessed with precision, and emotionally perceptive in ways doctors rarely are. But there were early signs of something darker. A classmate recalled, "He had this strange calm about death. When we lost a patient during training, others were shaken. He was observant, not cold, but fascinated. Fascination, a dangerous seasoning for a future physician." By 28, Dr. William Wigg had become the golden child of Riverbend Medical Center. Patients adored him. Nurses trusted him. Administrators promoted him at every turn because he lowered mortality rates and improved patient satisfaction scores. He had the soft, reassuring charisma that made anxious people breathe easier. His voice soothed. His explanations calmed fears. He remembered birthdays, asked about grandchildren, and brought coffee to night shift nurses. He was the doctor everyone wanted, and his reputation began to spread. He published multiple papers on rare autoimmune disorders. He pioneered a bedside communication protocol that reduced patient panic. He was requested by name so often the hospital created a waiting list solely for his consultations. But behind all the praise, a quiet truth was unfolding. Dr. Wigg had gained unrestricted access to medications, to vulnerable patients, to trust so complete that no one questioned him. not even when they should have. The first death wasn't suspicious. Eleanor Finch, 72, admitted for congestive heart failure. She died at 2:14 a.m., alone, after a sudden decline. Dr. Wigg was the attending physician. Cause of death: cardiac arrest. Case closed. The second death wasn't suspicious either. Marcus DeMonte, 58, diabetic complications. Died during recovery. He was stable last night, nurses said. These things happen. Cause of death: organ failure. Case closed. By the time the 5th, 6th, and 7th died, no one had connected the dots. Hospitals are places where people die. It's built into the walls. A death here and there rarely raises eyebrows. But the nurses in Unit C3 noticed something strange. The deaths always happened during the same shifts. Similar vague symptoms. Similar sudden declines. And the same doctor nearby. They whispered about it during night rounds. But their voices never traveled beyond breakroom walls. Because who would accuse Dr. Wigg? The man who brought them donuts, who calmed frantic families, who never raised his voice. Accusing him would be like accusing gravity. Court records would later conclude that Dr. Wigg had developed a pattern so subtle it bordered on genius. He didn't choose patients at random. He chose the lonely ones, the elderly, the terminal cases no one visited, the people whose families lived states away or didn't care enough to call. People society had already forgotten. Patients whose passing would be mourned only by paperwork. He administered small doses of a substance investigators would later identify. Not something exotic or cinematic, but common enough in medical environments to avoid suspicion. No dramatic injections. No sudden collapses. A slow, almost graceful deterioration. Symptoms that mimicked natural decline. Lab values that could be explained away. Deaths that fit neatly into expected patterns. It was a killing method designed not to raise alarms. When detectives asked him how he hid it so well, he replied, during one chilling interrogation, "Doctors make death look peaceful. I just did it a little earlier." His downfall began not with a death, but with a survival. Patient number 17. Her name was Lucinda Harrow, a 49-year-old schoolteacher admitted for a non-life-threatening respiratory issue. She wasn't supposed to die, and she didn't. One night, Dr. Wigg visited her room. He administered a medication, supposedly for pain, and stayed with her as she began to drift. Then something strange happened. Lucinda's daughter, Amaya, arrived unannounced. A surprise visit after leaving work early. She entered the room to see her mother slipping into unconsciousness. Her breathing shallow, her lips pale. "Is this normal?" she asked. Wigg smiled calmly. "Perfectly normal. She's just resting." But something in his tone felt rehearsed. Amaya stayed, watching, listening, and 15 minutes later, her mother's oxygen levels plummeted. Alarms blared. Nurses rushed in. Amaya overheard one whisper. "She wasn't critical. This doesn't make sense." A seed of suspicion sprouted. Not in the hospital, but in the heart of a daughter who refused to ignore instinct. Lucinda survived after emergency intervention. She awoke confused, with no memory of the event. But Amaya remembered everything, and she wasn't going to let it go. Amaya filed an informal complaint. Not a dramatic accusation, just a cautious note of concern. The hospital almost dismissed it. Almost. But a young quality control officer named Daniel Esker had also noticed something unsettling. Dr. Wigg's mortality rates were higher than average. Not by much, but enough to raise a quiet red flag. The problem? Wigg's survival rates for difficult cases were also unusually high. He seemed like a miracle worker and a reaper at the same time. A rare combination that concealed his pattern. Esker started digging. Patient charts. Shift logs. Medication dispensing records. Within 2 weeks, he identified 9 deaths with nearly identical timing and symptoms. He brought his findings to senior administration. They hesitated. Dr. Wigg was their star, their gentle giant, their PR darling. Accusing him would be nuclear, but ignoring the data would be catastrophic. So they called the police. Detectives Rochelle Turner and Grant Silves took the case. At first, they were skeptical. Doctors don't murder patients. Nurses maybe history had shown that, but doctors? That was rarer. But they interviewed staff, examined charts, and quietly consulted toxicologists. The same substance popped up in multiple patient lab results, though never at levels that would automatically flag toxicity. It was like someone was walking a tightrope, enough to kill, not enough to reveal. They sat down with Dr. Wigg one afternoon, framing it as a routine quality interview. He welcomed them with tea. He joked. He smiled. He said all the right things. But Turner noticed something. Whenever they mentioned a patient's name, his pupils contracted slightly. A microreaction. A flash of something like annoyance. When they left the hospital, she told her partner, "He's too charming. Overscripted. Something's off." The investigation intensified. Detectives obtained a warrant for expanded toxicology testing on exhumed patients. The results came back with a chilling consistency. Not exact matches, Dr. Wigg wasn't sloppy, but similar enough to suggest a pattern. Then came the turning point. A nurse named Hannah Whitlow came forward, her voice shaking, her eyes red. She admitted she had once confronted Wigg about an unusual medication dosage he logged at 3 a.m. He calmly told her it was a clerical error, but she saw the look in his eyes, cold, flat, a look that told her silence was safer. Her testimony cracked the shield around him. More nurses followed, then a respiratory therapist, then a medical assistant. Stories emerged, not of overt violence, but of patterns, behaviors, inconsistencies, and quiet threats concealed beneath a polite tone. Police arrested Dr. Wigg at 6:45 a.m. on a Tuesday, as he arrived for his shift. He didn't resist. He didn't protest. He simply asked, "Did someone break a pattern?" The detective later described his expression as almost disappointed. During interrogation, Wigg denied wrongdoing, calmly, softly, with a steady cadence. But his answers were rehearsed, too symmetrical, as if he had prepared for this moment his entire life. When investigators presented the full toxicology summary, he exhaled deeply. Not in fear, but resignation. They asked why he did it. He responded, "Some people don't need to suffer. Some people are already too far down the hill. I just gave them a softer landing." Detective Turner pushed further. 36 people? That's mercy. He tilted his head. It was never about mercy. It was about order. His trial date was set. The courtroom filled every day. Reporters elbowed for position. Families of victims sat in the front row, clinging to tissues and each other. Prosecutors called him a predator disguised as a savior. They built their case meticulously. Patterns of unusual deaths, medication discrepancies, eyewitness statements, toxicology results, shift logs, suspicious chart notes. One prosecutor summed it up. He counted on the quiet nature of death. He believed no one would speak for the forgotten. The defense argued lack of intent, natural causes, and flawed tests. They tried to paint him as a scapegoat, a misunderstood physician targeted by bureaucracy. But the jury didn't buy it. The evidence was too synchronized, too deliberate. During sentencing, the judge looked at him and said, "You inverted your oath. You turned healing into harm. You weaponized trust. For that, there are no words, only consequences." Dr. William Wigg was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Riverbend Medical Center held memorials. Families sought closure. Investigators reviewed internal policies nationwide, leading to new regulations on medication access, chart audits, and independent mortality reviews. Nurses who once trusted Wigg struggled with guilt. Lucinda Harrow, patient number 17, later said, "He looked at me like he was deciding whether I should stay or go. I survived because my daughter walked in at the right time. That's all." And Amaya became an advocate for hospital transparency. As for Dr. Wigg himself, prison officials described him as quiet, polite, unremarkable. He reads medical journals in his cell. He rarely speaks. He never apologized. In one rare comment to a journalist, he said, "People always fear the wrong monsters." This case forces a chilling question. How do you protect patients from the very people sworn to heal them? There is no perfect system, no infallible safeguard, but the story of Dr. William Wigg reminds us that vigilance must be constant. Patterns must be noticed, data must be questioned, and trust must never be blind. For in the quiet corners of hospitals, there are countless angels in white coats. Most compassionate, some flawed, very few dangerous. But it takes only one to turn healing into a battlefield. One to become an angel of death. One to steal lives under the guise of saving them. And for 36 families, that one was Dr. William Edmund Wigg.